Have you started dealing less damage and hitting less shots since the most recent update of the finals? It's not just you. Now, if you're one of the medium players who are absolutely ecstatic about this patch, odds are you're running the F car and you just didn't notice, but for the rest of us, we have noticed that something has been afoot. So today I'll go over just what changed, along with the rest of the many undocumented changes that were made this patch, right after a quick shout out to the sponsor of today's video. Are you still manually clipping and recording your own clips? Why? Half of the time the recording isn't even on, it doesn't clip anything, or it gets corrupted. Well, thanks to the sponsor of this video, I got the fix for you, and it's called Outplayed. With Outplayed, you can clip, edit, and share to anyone with just a couple of clicks. Want to clip funny moments when you die, or just when something stupid happens? A win, or even just an assist? What it clips is completely up to you. My personal favorite feature is that you can clip, trim, and send it to your friends all within the app. I'm just now realizing how much time I wasted by not using it. And also, it supports a ton of games. I mean, a ton. Use my link in the description to download Outplayed for free. And thank you again, Outplayed, for sponsoring this video. So let's take a look at the changes, starting off with you missing shots and all. Quite a few things regarding aim has been changed this very patch, so let's start by talking about the most important one that affects the most people. As of this patch, aiming down sights and shooting your guns now introduces random spread for most weapons in the game, and for whatever reason FCAR seems to work just fine. This random spread, usually known as bloom, adds additional randomness to the game and lowers the game's skill cap, as the recoil, in addition to the already known recoil patterns, now also has some random stray bullets thrown in as well, which means that the best players in the world with really good recoil control gets held back by their gun missing bullets that should have been hitting in the first place. The random spread seems to be more or less the same as if you were hip firing, and while I was testing what guns actually were affected by this, Embark went out with a statement confirming that this is actually a known bug, so hopefully we'll see a fix for it soon. That being said, it might take a while, and in the meantime it might be time for you to boot up medium, grab yourself an F car, and get beaming. Though after all these patch notes, odds are you already were. Anyways, let's move on with the rest, shall we? In addition to the recoil changes, if you're a console or just controller player, you might have noticed that your aim has been affected. A bug, for whatever reason, also doubled the zoom sensitivity multiplier under the controller settings, so if you had the default multiplier of 60, that's now set to 120%. Thankfully, you can easily fix this yourself by going into the settings and just turning it back. And on top of that, reportedly there's been an ongoing issue for controller players since the last aim assist patch, where it was nerfed, that being 1.4.1, where they no longer have any slowdown on targets within 20 meters. I don't think this is intentional, since there aren't really any mentions of that in those patch notes, so I figured I'd bring it up for anyone who's wondering what the hell is going on with their aim, and hopefully help with the many complaints I've been seeing about aim assist suddenly no longer working this patch. Keep in mind that the aim snapping and the rotational aim assist is still there at that range, you just don't get your aim slowed down if you pass a target. Another accuracy related issue that still lives on affects the throwing knives. While it's great that they improve the visibility of the trajectories, and when you're using the throwing card skin, now it actually shows you throwing cards and not daggers, it's still inaccurate if used while sliding or if you're airborne, so I don't recommend using these just yet, and if you do, make sure that you aren't moving around and throwing the knives, because odds are you're gonna keep missing your target. But that's all I know about the changes which would affect you hitting your shots, other than skill issue, so let's dive into the rest of the undocumented changes and even some tips for the new patch. As we all know, the Nuke saw a massive nerf in this new patch. The C4 now deals significantly less damage, with a direct hit now dealing 155 per C4 from 210, and the minimum damage was decreased to 100 from 120, which, since the C4 loses damage the farther away it is from the target, as with any explosive, basically means that you need to be a lot more accurate with the barrel throws when you use it. In addition to that, which probably sends the nukes down to the grave, is that attaching any explosive device, that being the C4, explosive mine, or breach charge, to an object now also weighs that object down, which stops you from throwing it as far. It doesn't make it heavy in a binary value, so the more weight you add to it, the heavier the object gets. That being said, thanks to them propelling forwards when thrown, this doesn't really affect the red explosive barrels. Or well, not so much.
Explosives are set! C4 armed! Mine the mine! Explosive mine placed! Pyro mine deployed! Pyro mine dropped!
So you can still easily propel your C4 onto the target, or your finger to hit that like button. Now, if you're like me and want to keep nuking, but have problems with the nuke spinning out on you, now is the time to start attaching C4s on one side each, as close to the tip as possible, as this evenly distributes the weight and does seem to let you control them a little bit farther. In addition to this, green barrels have seen a few changes as well, though I'm not sure which parts are bugs, which parts are spaghetti code, and which are intended but undocumented or unlisted changes, so we're just gonna go over everything that's changed, and there's a lot. The green barrels now randomly become heavier when they have been activated, which means you can't throw them nearly as far. They seem to get the same weight as when you've attached 2 C4s on them, and the same logic of them getting heavier once activated doesn't apply to orange barrels when they're set on fire, so odds are it's a bug or unintended interaction. On top of that, green gas barrels can no longer be remotely detonated by C4, RPG, or mines, but breaching charges for whatever reason still work. So generally that means you can put down a C4 and then a gas canister and then blow that canister up from a safe location. That being said, I have found that you can destroy a green canister by using a red explosive one, which means you could still remotely detonate them if you use a red canister in between. Let me explain. As long as a C4 or other gadget isn't in the line of sight of the green barrel when it blows up, the green barrel will still activate, meaning that if you want to set up a remote explosion of the green gas barrels, you will need to place a red barrel in front of it in a position where your C4 blows up the red barrel without that C4 ever being in line of sight with the green one. That's because this would cause a chain reaction, which makes the red barrel blow up and then the red barrel blows up the green one and gives you the desired result. That being said, this feels really wonky, and since it works for breaching charges but nothing else, this is probably another bug, but I can see Embark wanting to nerf this interaction as well, so you know, who knows. Moving on, there's now a way to cap your FPS in-game instead of needing to go through your settings file. Just go into your graphic settings and go nuts. I've also found that the lights grapple cancel feels a bit slower, where you need to wait a little bit longer after activation before you're able to cancel the grapple with a jump. This stops you from being able to spam the grapple the same way, but it also means that you're guaranteed to get launched forward if you do cancel your grapple at any point after it's hit a target. The rapid fire punching exploit, that being the punch, switch to gadget and back to your weapon, again animation cancel exploit, also doesn't seem to have been fixed, though they did mention something about a melee exploit, so maybe you can't do 13 melee hits a second by using a macro anymore. I wouldn't know because I wasn't using it. The auto shotgun reload cancel spam has finally been fixed, but you can still animation cancel the cocking animation by throwing in a punch after firing your 4th shot. I ended up testing all the exploits in Swell's video that went viral a few weeks ago, and it appears that everything that he mentioned got fixed, so I guess Embark really was paying attention. Speaking of which, you can no longer attach a motion sensor to something like a barrel and then throw it and grapple onto it. They did mention prop surfing in the patch notes, but I didn't see an explicit mention of this one, so I figured I'd bring it up. I also tested creating vertical goo towers, and it seems like they're a lot easier to make now. All you need to do is make sure that you've jumped at any point before placing the goo underneath you, and even if you glitch into the goo, your character will still climb onto it. There doesn't seem to be any risk of sliding off or having the goo disappear as long as you jump. And so far, that is all of the undocumented changes. There may be more out there, but I figured we'd get this video out as soon as possible to help those out that thought that they suddenly got really bad at the game when it all just came down to a bug. If you do find some undocumented changes or bugs, feel free to let me know in the comments or hop into our Discord at discord.gg/Ottr and let us know through there. Anyways, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you all next time. Peace out.